And it really captures that journey, buying a first home here in Canada, but told through this really candid chat between a few people who've done it, or maybe right in the middle of it.
And their conversation, it completely reframes that simple dream picture. Like one of the characters, Jordan, he says right off the bat, it's not just buying something.
No.
He calls it a financial and emotional triathlon.
Right.
Or a major boss battle.
I like that one, a boss battle.
Yeah. Or a quest fraught with confusing acronyms, hidden costs, and emotional roller coasters.
That framing is just so important because they're stressing you're not just buying, wood and drywall. You're stepping into this really complex system. It's got its own rules, its own challenges.
And the chapter uses that great metaphor. The goal is to slay the beast, the Canadian real estate market beast.
Slay the beast. It sounds daunting, but it also means it can be done, right?
Exactly. It acknowledges the fight,
Yeah.
but suggests you can win.
Yeah.
And that's really our mission today with this deep dive. We want to take the roadmap they lay out in this source material. I think there were 7 steps.
7 distinct steps, yeah.
Okay, so we'll unpack each one. We'll pull out the key insights, the warnings, the essential bits of knowledge these characters shared so you can feel, genuinely ready to face that boss battle yourself.
Think of it like getting the intel before you go into the arena. If you understand the steps, the potential traps, the lingo, it just gives you way more confidence and discipline, probably.
Yeah, discipline's a big one, based on their stories.
And the source gives us this clear, logical path. We're just going to follow it step by step, learning from Jerry, Jordan, Zara, Raj, Linda, all their experiences in this conversation.
Okay, let's jump in. Step 1. And interestingly, the roadmap doesn't start with, mortgage calculators or browsing listings.
No, it's more fundamental.
It starts with looking inward. The source calls this step.
Step 1, the are you sure and dream phase.
Sounds simple, maybe, but they present it as absolutely critical, foundational. Before you crunch a single number, you have to tackle that core question they discuss. Why? Why do you actually want to buy a home?
And you got to be brutally honest with yourself about the answer. Totally.
Zara, one of the characters, she shares those common reasons you hear all the time. There's that societal nudge, right? Because it's what you're supposed to do.
Oh, yeah. Feels like everyone else is doing it.
Or talking about it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's that big financial one. The idea you need to build equity instead of just, what's the phrase she used?
Throwing money away on my landlord's mortgage.
That exact phrase. It's so powerful, isn't it? Such a strong motivator for so many people.
It really is. Feels like the #1 reason sometimes. But then Jerry, he sounds like the seasoned voice in the group. Maybe he's owned for a while.
Yeah, he seems reflective.
He adds this much deeper layer. He's insistent. Buying a home is a life decision, not just a financial spreadsheet calculation. It's about your lifestyle, your future, your priorities. Bigger picture stuff.
And that's where it moves beyond just the numbers on a page.
Yeah.
Jerry gives these really concrete examples like wanting a yard so the dog can run around.
Simple things.
Yeah. Or just the freedom to hammer a nail on the wall to hang a picture whenever you want without asking permission. Right. Or picking a neighborhood specifically because it's got a good school, even if kids aren't in the picture yet. That's not about ROI, is it?
Not at all. It's about how you want to live your life.
And he makes this really crucial point about the trade-off. When you rent, you've got flexibility. You can pack up for a job across the country relatively easily. You don't stress about property taxes or, a sudden roof leak.
Exactly. And if the toilet backs up at 2 a.m., you call the landlord. It's their problem. Jerry uses that leaky toilet example so well.
He does. It perfectly highlights those sudden, unavoidable responsibilities that land squarely on your shoulders when you own.
And that takes a different kind of readiness, doesn't it? It's practical, it's emotional. Just saving the down payment doesn't cover that side of things. Are you prepared to be the one dealing with surprise repairs, the constant upkeep on top of the mortgage?
That's the question.
Yeah.
And linked to this whole "are you sure" thing is what they call the dream phase. But it's got a twist. It's not just dreaming big. It's about separating your needs from your wants.
The needs versus wants list. Crucial.
And being really, really honest about which is which.
The characters in the source, they run through some classic examples, like how many bedrooms do you actually need right now versus how many would be nice to have someday?
Or is living downtown a real need for your commute? Or now that you work from home 3 days a week, is more of a want?
Right. Or that big backyard, is it essential for your lifestyle? Maybe you love gardening. Or would a simple condo balcony do the trick for now, less hassle?
Because those wants, they might seem great, but they usually mean a higher price tag. And higher ongoing costs too, right?
Absolutely. Property taxes, utilities, maintenance, it all scales up. If you overestimate your needs or chase wants you can't comfortably afford, you're setting yourself up for financial stress down the road.
So step one is this vital, non-financial groundwork. Before you even glance at Realtor.ca or talk to a bank, sit down, maybe with your partner if you're buying together, and really dig into the why and figure out your absolute, honest-to-goodness needs for this stage of your life.
That clarity, they argue, will guide everything else that comes after. It's your anchor.
Okay, so once you've got that why and the essential what sorted out, then you pivot to the money side, which brings us neatly to step two.
Step 2. The money talk, assembling your down payment. This is where all that saving you've hopefully been doing starts to take shape.
Yeah, the nitty-gritty.
And the down payment itself. Jordan's Jargon Buster section in the source material defines it pretty memorably. He calls it the big chunk of cash you give up front to prove you're serious.
Okay, makes sense.
And to avoid soul-sapping mortgage insurance.
Soul sapping. Okay, that phrase definitely jumps out.
Yeah.
Tells you right away this insurance thing is probably something you want to pay close attention to.
And potentially avoid if you can.
The source also mentions specific Canadian savings tools that are really helpful for first-time buyers aiming for that down payment. Zara mentions using them.
Right. She highlights the FHSA, that's the First Home Savings Account, and also the TFSA, the tax-free savings account.
Good tools to know about. They have tax advantages that can help your savings grow faster than just putting money in a regular bank account.
Definitely worth looking into. Now, the source gets very specific about the minimum down payment rules for 2025 in Canada. And it's not just one flat percentage.
Right. It's tiered.
Yeah.
Based on the purchase price. This is super important to get right.
Absolutely critical. Let's break it down based on their numbers.
Okay. So for any part of the purchase price up to the first $500,000, the minimum down payment you need is 5%. So say you're buying a place for $400,000. That's under $500K.
Right. So you need 5% of $400,000.
Which is $20,000. The source uses Zara's condo example for this exact number. $20K minimum cash needed.
Correct. That's the first tier.
But the rules change if the house costs more than $500,000.
Yeah, it gets a bit more complicated. You still need that 5% on the first $500,000 chunk of the price.
Okay, so that's $25,000 right there, 5% of $500K.
Exactly. But then for the part of the price that falls between $500,001 and $999,999, you need a higher percentage. You need 10% on that portion.
Okay, let's use their example, a $700,000 house.
Right. So $700,000, it's 5% on the first $500K, which we said is $25,000.
Got it.
Then you look at the remaining amount. $700,000 minus $500,000 is $200,000.
Okay.
You need 10% of that $200,000.
10% of $200K is $20,000.
Right. So for the $700,000 house, your total minimum down payment is the $25,000 plus the $20,000.
Which adds up to $45,000. Okay, that makes sense. 5% on the first $500,000, 10% on the bit between $500K and basically $1 million.
You got it.
And what if you're looking in markets where homes are $1 million or more?
Then the rule changes again, and it's a much bigger jump. For any home priced at $1 million or higher, the minimum down payment required is a straight 20% of the total purchase price.
Wow. Okay, so if you're aiming for a $1.2 million place, 20% of that is $240,000.
$240,000 cash up front, minimum. It's a significant hurdle in those pricier markets.
Definitely. And this 20% figure, it brings us right back to Jordan's soul-sapping mortgage insurance. The source is crystal clear on this point.
The big catch?
If your down payment is less than 20% of the home's purchase price,
you must legally buy mortgage loan insurance. No way around it.
Often called CMHC insurance, right? Since they're the main provider, there are others.
Exactly. CMHC insurance. And the Jargon Buster drops the absolute key piece of info about this stuff.
Which is?
It does not protect you, the buyer.
Wait, really? Who does it protect then?
It protects the lender, the bank. It's insurance for them in case you can't make your mortgage payments and default on the loan.
Hold on.
Yeah.
So I'm forced to pay for an insurance policy that only benefits the bank if I mess up.
That's precisely it. And it's not cheap. It's a premium, usually calculated as a percentage of your mortgage amount, and it gets added on to your total mortgage.
Added on. So I don't pay it up front in cash.
Typically, no, not out of pocket at closing. It gets rolled into the mortgage principal, which means
I'm borrowing more money. I'm borrowing a house price minus my small down payment plus this insurance premium.
Exactly. And you pay interest on that premium for the entire life of your mortgage, 25, maybe 30 years.
Ouch. That sounds like it could add up to a lot of extra interest over
It
time.
really does. Tens of thousands of dollars over the amortization period, easily, depending on the numbers. The Jargon Buster has this perfect analogy for it.
Yeah.
Paying for CMHC insurance, it's like buying a helmet for someone else.
Wow. A helmet for the bank, paid for by me with interest.
That's the gist. And when you think about it like that, you suddenly understand why the source calls saving up that full 20% down payment a huge milestone.
Because it's the magic number. It lets you completely dodge that extra cost, as they put it.
Bingo. No CMHC insurance, your mortgage amount is smaller from day one, less interest paid over the long haul. It's a massive long-term financial win if you can manage it.
So understanding these minimums, 5%, 10%, 20%, and especially understanding that CMHC insurance trap if you're under 20%, that's absolutely fundamental when you're planning your savings in step 2.
Couldn't agree more. It shapes your whole strategy.
Okay, so step 1, nail down the why and the needs. Step 2, understand the down payment rules and the CMHC implications, and save accordingly. Now, the urge must be huge at this point, right? Start scrolling those listings, go to open houses.
The temptation is real.
But the source gives this absolutely firm, non-negotiable instruction for step 3. Do not pass go yet. Instead.
Step 3, meet your mortgage master. Get pre-approved. Jordan is super emphatic about this. He says it's the most important step before you look at a single house.
He really hammers it home. The source uses language like, do not pass go, do not collect $200, do not book a single viewing until you have a mortgage pre-approval.
And the reasons are just so practical. It's about saving yourself from major disappointment and wasted time and energy.
Raj, another voice in the conversation, he has that perfect analogy for skipping this step.
Oh yeah, the grocery shopping one.
He says, going house hunting without one is like going grocery shopping when you're starving and have no shopping list.
You'll come home with a cart full of expensive junk you can't afford and do not use. It just perfectly captures that danger of falling for something based purely on desire without knowing your actual limits.
It really does. You find the perfect place, you get emotionally attached, start picturing your furniture in there, only to discover later you can't actually get the mortgage for it. Crushing.
It's utterly crushing. The pre-approval is your reality check, your dose of financial realism before the emotions kick in.
The Jargon Buster calls it your financial permission slip.
Yeah, and then adds, house hunting without it is like going on a date with no money or pants.
Huh. Okay, another memorable warning. So what exactly does this pre-approval tell you?
Okay, so it's basically a conditional thumbs up from a lender, like a bank or a credit union. They do a preliminary check of your finances, your income, your debts, your down payment amount. Based on that quick look, they tell you roughly how much they're likely willing to lend you.
So it gives you your budget, your real-world budget, as the source says.
Exactly. It sets your price ceiling for house hunting.
Yeah.
But, and this is a really important point, Jordan makes the pre-approval amount. That's the maximum the bank thinks you might be able to handle.
Right, not necessarily what you should borrow.
Precisely. You might get pre-approved for, say, $500,000, but maybe you look at your overall budget, your other savings goals, wanting to travel, whatever, and you realize that taking on a $500K mortgage would leave you feeling squeezed every month. Maybe a $450,000 mortgage feels much more comfortable, more sustainable.
That's the difference between just getting the mortgage and not ending up house poor. Right, still having a life outside the mortgage payment.
That's the goal. And a big part of getting this pre-approval number in Canada involves something the source calls the dreaded stress test.
Ah, yes, the stress test. Zara joked about yelling at bank statements. It sounds intimidating.
It can sound that way, but the source breaks down how it works pretty clearly. The lender can't just qualify you based on the nice low interest rate they might be offering you today.
So what rate do they use?
The government makes them test your ability to afford the payments at a higher interest rate. It acts as a buffer.
Higher how? Like how much higher?
Well, they have to use whichever rate is higher between these two options. Option A is the Bank of Canada's 5-year benchmark qualifying rate. Option B is your specific contract mortgage rate plus 2 percentage points.
Okay, wait. So even if I negotiate a great rate, say 4%, they might have to check if I can still afford the payments if my rate suddenly jumped to 6%, my rate plus 2%.
Yeah.
Or maybe even higher if that Bank of Canada benchmark rate happens to be, say, 6.5%.
Exactly. They run the calculation using the higher of those two possibilities. It's a hypothetical stress scenario.
And why did they do this? What's the point of qualifying me at a rate I'm not actually paying?
It's a government rule designed as a safety net for the whole financial system, really. The idea is to make sure Canadian homeowners could still handle their mortgage payments, even if interest rates were to shoot up significantly down the road.
Oh, okay. To prevent defaults if rates climb like they did in the 80s or something.
Sort of, yeah. It reduces risk. Jordan has another good analogy here. He says the stress test is like making you prove you can run on a financial treadmill set to a steep incline before they let you stroll on the flat path.
Huh. Okay, that paints a picture. Testing your capacity under pressure.
Right. But the practical impact for you, the buyer, is that this stress test almost always reduces the total amount of mortgage you can actually qualify for compared to what you might calculate just using the current low rates.
So that pre-approval number might come back lower than you hoped because of the stress test calculation.
Often, yes. And that can be frustrating for sure. But the source emphasizes it's meant to be a crucial safety buffer. It's ultimately there to protect you from borrowing more than you could handle if rates did rise unexpectedly.
Okay, makes sense. So who do you talk to actually get this pre-approval done?
The source suggests two main routes. You can go to a mortgage broker, they work independently, and can shop your application around to multiple different lenders to find competitive rates and options. Or you can speak directly with a mortgage specialist at your own bank or credit union. Either way, they're the experts who will collect all your financial documents, run these numbers, apply the stress test, and give you that crucial pre-approval letter.
Got it. So step 3 is absolutely essential. It's your first real engagement with a lender. Get pre-approved. Understand your true budget after the stress test. And remember the difference between your max approval and what's actually comfortable for your life. Only then. Only after you have that financial permission slip. Are you ready for step 4?
Step 4, the great Hunt and Raj's horror story. Now we're at the part people often think of, first looking at houses, scrolling listings, going to open houses, walking through potential homes.
The exciting part.
It can be,
Yeah.
but the source is clear. You don't just wander into this alone. It's described as a wilderness.
Right. You need a guide. That bad advice bingo section they had. The bad advice was thinking you can do it all yourself.
Yeah, the reality check was, it's a wild jungle out there and you need a guide, meaning a good real estate agent.
Makes sense. They know the market, they have access to listings, they can help you schedule viewings, and importantly, help you navigate making an offer later.
Definitely. And how this hunt feels, how intense it is, really depends on the market conditions at the time. The source defines the two main types.
Okay, what are they?
First, you might be in a buyer's market. That's when there are lots of homes listed for sale, but maybe not as many people looking to buy.
So supply is high, demand is lower.
Exactly. In that scenario, you, the buyer, have more power, more choice, less competition, maybe more room to negotiate on the price or ask for conditions.
Okay, sounds ideal. What's the opposite?
The opposite, and this is often tougher for first-timers, is a seller's market. That's when there are very few houses available compared to the number of buyers who want them.
Low supply, high demand.
Right. The power shifts completely to the seller. And this is the kind of market where you see
Bidding wars.
bidding wars become common. Multiple offers on the same property, driving the price up.
And it's exactly this kind of heated seller's market where Raj's story takes place. His experience is presented as a major cautionary tale in the source material.
It really is. He talks about looking for months, finding places they liked, putting in offers, but just losing out again and again to other buyers, probably offering more or maybe with fewer conditions.
That sounds incredibly draining, just constant rejection.
Totally. And then, he says, they found the one. The house that just felt perfect, fit their needs, their dreams,
Yeah.
ticked all the boxes. But
What?
it was listed right at the very, very top of the budget they'd set based on their pre-approval. Like maxed out already.
Ooh, okay. Tight. But they went for it.
They put in an offer at asking price, really hoping this time would be different.
Good.
Then the call comes from their agent. Multiple offers. It's a competition.
Oh, here we go.
Raj describes this immediate shift in feeling. It suddenly wasn't about carefully buying a home anymore. It became about winning.
The competitive instinct kicks in.
Totally. The sellers set a deadline for best and final offers. Raj and his partner, they scrambled, talked to their mortgage broker one last time, confirmed their absolute max borrowing limit.
And they decided.
They decided to push right up against that limit. They offered $25,000 over the asking price. Remember, asking was already their max budget.
Wow. That's stretching thin. A huge decision under pressure.
Huge. And then our agent calls back again and says, okay, your offer is strong, you're right in the running, but there's another offer that has no conditions.
Oh boy. The condition issue. This connects directly to the next step, doesn't it?
Directly. Raj explains they felt okay-ish about waiving the financing condition because their pre-approval was solid, they felt confident the mortgage would come through, but the home inspection condition, on an older house too, they mentioned it was 50 years old.
Yeah, that feels way riskier. Did he say why?
He quotes his dad. Said his dad always told him, never buy a horse without looking at its teeth.
Huh. Good advice. Basically, check what you're buying before you commit.
Exactly. But Raj says they were just caught up in the frenzy. They were exhausted from losing out so many times. They just wanted it to be over. They wanted the house.
So, against their better judgment.
Against that little voice screaming, don't do it, they told their agent, waive the inspection.
Oh, man. And did they get it?
They got it. Offer accepted. $25,000 over asking. No inspection condition. Raj talks about that initial rush relief, excitement, celebration. They did it. They slayed the beast.
Must have felt amazing for a minute.
Only for a minute. The source says just 2 months after they moved in, after a big rainstorm, water seeping into the basement,
Oh.
they called in a foundation specialist. And the verdict came quickly. Massive crack, pre-existing crack in the concrete foundation.
Pre-existing. So it was there when they bought it.
Yep. And here's the truly gut-wrenching part from the source.
Right.
It wasn't obvious at first glance because someone had cleverly patched and painted over it, but only from the inside.
Well, that's shady. Someone knew and hid it.
Seems likely. And the repair bill?
How much?
$22,000.
$22,000. Just after moving in.
Just after moving in. And Raj stresses the terrible reality. They had pushed their budget to the absolute breaking point and then gone beyond it with that $25K over asking price. Every single cent they had, plus that extra borrowed amount, was sunk into the house purchase itself.
They had no cushion left. Nothing for emergencies.
Zero buffer. They were forced to borrow the $22,000 for the foundation repair, taking on more debt right after taking on the biggest debt of their lives.
That is brutal. What a nightmare.
And Raj's final thought on it is so powerful. He says, for a long, long time, that feeling of having won the bidding war just felt like losing. Badly.
His story.
Yeah.
Wow. It's such a vivid warning about the dangers lurking in those hot sellers markets.
Absolutely. And the other characters reflect on it. Linda, she takes a business view, calls it simply a bad deal, like buying a company without checking the financials. Emotion and competition made them skip the essential due diligence, the inspection.
Like buying the horse without checking its teeth.
Exactly. And Jerry brings it back to patience. He tells Raj, gently, there's always another house. It might not feel like it in the moment, but there is. But, he adds, there isn't always another $22,000 just sitting around.
Oof, that hits hard.
Jerry concludes that sometimes the best deal, the smartest move, is having the discipline to just walk away, even when it hurts, even when you love the place.
Raj's story really drives home the risks of step 4, the emotional roller coaster, the pressure, the competition, and the potentially catastrophic consequences of making decisions in that state. It's a perfect setup for step 5.
Step 5, the offer and the art of the deal. Okay, so let's say you've navigated the hunt, you found a place you like, hopefully you stuck to your budget from the pre-approval, and ideally you avoided a crazy bidding war like Raj's. Now it's time to make the actual offer.
Based on Raj's experience, the source repeats that advice. Try to avoid bidding wars if you can. But if you do end up in one,
the absolute key is having that firm walkaway price set in stone before you even start bidding, and sticking to it no matter what.
discipline again. But the real core of step 5, according to the source, is all about using conditions effectively. They call conditions your shield.
Yes. Jordan's Jargon Buster defines them as legal exit doors. These are specific clauses you write into your offer to purchase.
And what do?
They basically say, my offer is firm if these specific things happen or check out. If a condition isn't met to your satisfaction within a set time frame, you can legally back out of the deal and get your deposit back. No penalty.
Okay, there are escape hatches. Protection.
Exactly. And the checklist and bad advice bingo sections really zero in on this, especially the inspection. They warn against waiving it with that unforgettable line, waive the inspection. That's like marrying someone after their Instagram filter.
Huh. You only see the pretty picture, not the potential underlying problems. So true. The source highlights 2 conditions as basically essential shields for buyers. What's the first one?
The condition of financing.
Okay, what does that cover?
This gives you a set number of days, usually like 5 business days after the seller accepts your offer, to get your final unconditional mortgage approval from the bank.
Because the pre-approval wasn't the final green light, right?
Right.
It was conditional.
Correct. Now the lender does the full underwriting. They might order an independent appraisal of the property to make sure it's actually worth what you're paying, especially compared to the loan amount. They re-verify all your financial details.
And if something goes wrong, like maybe the bank's appraisal comes in low, or they find an issue with your income verification.
If anything prevents you from getting that final, firm mortgage approval, this condition lets you walk away clean. You get your deposit back. It protects you if the financing falls through for reasons beyond your control.
Okay, vital protection on the money side. What's the second crucial condition? The one Raj skipped.
The condition of home inspection, equally vital.
And this lets you.
This gives you a similar time frame, maybe 5-7 days, to hire your own independent, qualified home inspector. They come in and do a thorough visual examination of the house.
What are they looking for?
Everything major. The roof, the foundation, the electrical system, the plumbing, the heating and cooling systems, insulation, drainage, signs of water damage, structural issues, basically the health of the house.
Looking for things like, say, a giant hidden foundation crack.
Exactly like Raj's $22,000 foundation crack. If the inspector finds significant problems, this condition gives you options.
Like what?
You can use the blame report to go back to the seller and try to negotiate. Maybe ask them to fix the issue before closing, or ask for a price reduction to cover the repair costs.
And if the seller says no, or the problem is just too big for you to take on.
Then the condition allows you to walk away. Again, you get your deposit back. You're not locked into buying a house with major, costly, hidden defects.
Without that condition, like in Raj's case, you buy it as is. And any problems discovered after closing are 100% your problem, your cost.
That's the gamble. The source called waiving conditions a massive gamble and says you should only ever consider it if you are fully prepared, financially and emotionally, to accept potentially catastrophic consequences, like suddenly needing $22,000 you don't have.
So these conditions, financing and inspection, they aren't just nice-to-haves. They're presented as fundamental buyer protection, your shields.
Absolutely. The source suggests the art of the deal for a buyer is knowing how to use these shields and, crucially, having the discipline not to lower them, even if you're feeling pressured in a competitive market. Your financial future could literally hang in the balance.
Okay, deep breath time. Let's say you did everything right. You did the soul searching, saved the down payment, maybe even 20%, got pre-approved, navigated the hunt, maybe even a mild bidding war, but you held firm. You made an offer with your conditions, the financing came through, the inspection was clean, and the seller accepted. You've done it.
Feels like the finish line.
All right. Time to relax, call the movers. Almost. But the source warns there's one more significant financial hurdle. The last challenge before the keys are yours.
Step 6. The final boss closing costs.
The final boss. I like that. This happens after your offer is firm, but before you actually legally own the place. And Jordan's jargon buster definition nails the feeling.
What does he say?
Surprise, you owe more.
Sounds about right.
Includes legal fees, land transfer taxes, inspections, and the tiers of unprepared buyers. He uses that analogy of buying a concert ticket.
Oh, yeah.
You see the $50 ticket price, but by the time you check out, with all of the service fees, facility fees, processing fees, the final cost is way higher.
That is a perfect analogy for closing costs. They sneak up on you if you're not ready.
And they're not small amounts either. This is one of the biggest areas where first-time buyers get caught off guard, according to the source.
Definitely. They focus so much on saving the down payment, they forget about this whole other chunk of cash needed right at the end.
So how much are we talking? The source gives a budgeting guideline, right?
Right. Yes, a crucial one. They recommend you budget an extra 1.5% to 4% of the home's purchase price, specifically for closing costs. And that's on top of your down payment.
Wow. 1.5% to 4%. That's a pretty big range, but even at the low end, 1.5% on a $500,000 house is what, $7,500?
Right, and at the high end, 4%, that's $20,000.
$20,000 extra in cash that you need ready besides the down payment. That is significant.
It's absolutely significant. And the bad advice bingo section warns against just winging it here. The bad advice is just wing it. The reality, prepare to be ambushed.
Okay, message received. So what actually makes up these costs? What are you paying for in that 1.5% to 4%?
The source lists several key items. One of the biggest ones usually is the Provincial Land Transfer Tax, or LTT.
Land transfer tax, okay.
This is a tax charged by most provincial governments whenever a property changes ownership. The calculation varies by province and often by the price of the home, but it can easily run into thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars.
Tens of thousands?
Yeah.
Just in tax?
On higher-priced homes in some provinces, absolutely. The source does mention Alberta as an exception. They don't have a provincial LTT, but they do have a smaller land titles transfer fee, so that specific cost is lower in Alberta, but the others still apply.
Okay, so land transfer tax is a big one outside Alberta. What else?
Legal fees. You absolutely need a real estate lawyer or notary public to handle the closing.
What do they do?
They do all the paperwork to legally transfer the ownership title to you, register your mortgage against the property, make sure taxes are paid, exchange the funds. It's complex legal work, and their fees can range from maybe $1,500 up to several $1,000s, depending on the deal's complexity and where you live.
Okay, lawyer fees. Got it. What else?
Title insurance.
Okay.
This is usually required by your lender, but it protects you too.
Protects against what?
Against potential problems with the property's title that might pop up after you buy it. Things like unknown linens, survey errors, boundary disputes, or even title fraud. It's a one-time premium paid at closing.
Okay, title insurance. Seems important.
Then there's the home inspection fee. Now, you usually pay the inspector directly when they do the work, which is before you finalize the deal.
Right, back in step 5 when you satisfy the condition.
Exactly. But the source includes it here as part of the total cash outlay involved in the transaction of buying. And that fee can be anywhere from, say, $400 to $1,000 or more, depending on the house size and location.
Makes sense to count it in the total cost of getting the house. Anything else?
Property tax adjustments. This catches people sometimes.
How does that work?
Property taxes are often paid in advance. So, if the seller has already paid the property taxes for a period of time after the closing date, the date you officially take ownership.
You have to pay them back for the days you'll own the house, but they already covered the tax for.
Precisely. Your lawyer calculates the exact amount owing based on the closing date. It can be a few hundred, maybe even $1,000 or more, depending on the timing and tax rates.
Okay, tax adjustment. Seems fair.
And the source just adds, and more, because little things can pop up. If it's a condo, you might pay for an estoppel certificate or status certificate fee. That's a document from the condo board. Maybe your lender requires a second appraisal fee. It adds up.
The absolute key takeaway from step 6 then is, don't forget the final boss. Your down payment is not the total cash you need. You must save that extra 1.5% to 4% buffer, specifically for these closing costs.
If you don't, you could be scrambling for cash right at the finish line, which is incredibly stressful and could even risk the whole deal falling apart if you can't come up with the funds for the lawyer. Budgeting for them from the start is crucial.
Okay. You've done it. You faced the final boss and won. You scraped together the down payment and the closing cost buffer. You signed a mountain of paperwork with the lawyer. You made it through all 6 steps. This finally brings you to the moment you've been dreaming of.
Step 7, getting the keys.
The payoff.
This is it, the culmination of everything. The source describes that moment your lawyer calls, confirms the deal is registered, money has changed hands, it's officially yours, you go pick up the keys.
And you walk into your home. You actually slayed the beast.
Must be an incredible feeling after that whole marathon. Zara, in the conversation, she reflects on it. She acknowledges how tough it all was, says something like, yeah, it was a big, expensive headache.
Which sounds right.
But, she adds, the key was having the roadmap. With a roadmap, it feels manageable. Not easy, but manageable.
That's such a great insight. Knowing the steps, knowing what to expect, makes the impossible feel possible, makes the headache treatable.
Exactly. That's the power of the knowledge they share in this source. But wait, getting the keys? It's not quite the end of the story, especially regarding smart financial choices. Jordan steps back in with some important advice for after you move in.
Oh, what's that?
He brings it right back to step 1, that needs versus wants discussion.
That comes full circle.
He really emphasizes the wisdom of actually buying the home you need at this point in your life, not the home you want, even after you've qualified.
Why is that so important after you already own it?
Because of the ongoing costs. He lays out the clear financial argument. A bigger, fancier house isn't just more expensive up front. It costs significantly more to own month after month, year after year.
Right. The carrying costs are higher. Property taxes are based on the home's value, so a bigger, pricier home means a bigger tax bill every year.
Definitely. And utilities. Heating a larger space, especially in Canada. Cooling it in summer. Electricity, water. It all costs more for a larger footprint.
These aren't one-time closing costs. These are forever costs, or at least as long as you own the home. They eat into your monthly budget constantly.
Exactly. And Jordan connects this directly to your other financial goals. If you choose a more modest home that truly meets your needs, rather than stretching to the absolute max for a dream home with extra space or features you don't really use.
Your monthly bills are lower, You have more cash flow left over each month.
Right. And what can you do with that extra money? You can put it back into savings, maybe top up that TFSA the source mentioned earlier. You can invest it, save for retirement, travel, pay down the mortgage faster. You have options.
Instead of every spare dollar just being sucked into the house.
That's the idea. Living smartly as a homeowner means making sure the house fits comfortably within your overall financial picture, allowing you to still pursue other life goals, not just servicing the house itself.
That makes a lot of sense for long-term financial health.
And one last little warning shot comes from the checklist section, relevant right at this moving in stage.
Well, with that,
Don't forget those other hidden costs that pop up immediately after closing, as you're actually setting up your new life there.
oh yeah, the stuff you don't think about until you're doing it, like the actual cost of hiring movers or renting a truck.
Right. Then realizing your old sofa looks terrible in the new living room or just doesn't fit, so new furniture costs.
Curtains or blinds. Suddenly you have all these bare windows.
Yep.
And they mentioned that that $100 IKEA mistake everyone makes, just all the little trips for things you suddenly realize you need, and it adds up fast.
Lamps, bath mats, a new trash can. Yeah.
These aren't part of the official purchase or closing costs, but the real expenses that hit your wallet right when you move in. So having a small extra buffer budgeted just for that initial setup period is another smart layer of preparation.
Okay, so step 7 is the victory lap, getting the keys, but it's also a reminder that the financial thinking doesn't stop. It's about ongoing responsible ownership and smart choices. Jordan's final advice in the source really wraps it all up nicely.
Yeah, does he say?
Basically, don't rush. Be patient. Follow the map. These 7 steps work. Trust your team, your agent, broker, lawyer, your fellowship guiding you. And listen to people who've been there. Heed the wisdom of those who've walked the path, like the characters sharing their stories here. It's so clear from everything they discussed, buying your first home in Canada. It is complex, it's financially huge, it's emotionally taxing. It absolutely is a headache, a triathlon, a boss battle.
No doubt about it.
But, and this is the hopeful part, by understanding these steps, by knowing about the big costs like CMHC insurance and closing fees, by managing those emotional pressures Raj faced, by using your conditions as shields, it becomes, as Zara realized, manageable.
Not easy, but manageable. That feels like the key takeaway. We've walked through this whole 7-step roadmap from the first home headache, started with that crucial why am I doing this question,
The foundation.
and dug into down payments, the 52020 rules, that costly CMHC insurance. Then the absolute necessity of getting pre-approved, understanding the stress tests.
Navigating the hunt,
Yeah.
the market types, and Raj's really powerful story about the dangers of bidding wars and waiving inspections.
Followed by the importance of using conditions like financing and inspection in your offer as your protection.
Then bracing for that final boss of closing costs, budgeting that extra 1.5 to 4%.
Right through to finally getting the keys in step 7, but also remembering Jordan's advice about living smartly within your means afterwards.
The really strong messages that come through again and again from the source are, get pre-approved first. Understand who CMHC insurance really protects the bank. And try hard to save 20% to avoid it. Budget seriously for closing costs. They're real and they're big. Use your conditions. They are your safety net, remember, Raj. Don't let emotion or competition make you waive them. And think long term. Buy the home you truly need now, not just the biggest one you can technically afford, so you have financial breathing room later.
Having this kind of detailed knowledge, hearing these real stories and warnings directly from the source material, it should feel empowering, right? It doesn't make the process simple, but it shines a light on the path. It helps you know what's coming, what really matters, where the big risks are. It turns that overwhelming headache into a complex problem that hopefully you now feel better equipped to solve.
Absolutely. And as you think about this whole process, maybe you're just starting to dream, maybe you're deep in the savings phase, or maybe you're even house hunting right now. The source material kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. It challenges that initial, very common idea that drives so many people.
You mean that renting is throwing money away idea?
Yeah,
Compared to building equity through ownership.
exactly. That's the standard argument, the big pull towards buying.
It makes intuitive sense on the surface.
It does, but
Yeah.
when you factor in everything else we've just unpacked from this deep dive into the source material, think about it. The potential cost of CMHC insurance if you're under 20% down, and paying interest on that premium for decades.
Right.
The way the stress test lowers your borrowing power, potentially limiting your choices.
Uh-huh.
The thousands, maybe tens of thousands in dead money for closing costs like land transfer tax and legal fees.
Yeah, gone forever.
The definitely higher ongoing costs of owning versus renting property taxes, higher utilities, maybe condo fees, insurance.
Maintenance and repairs.
The constant risk and cost of unexpected major repairs, like Raj's $22,000 foundation surprise.
No.
And just the sheer amount of your capital, your savings, that gets tied up in the down payment and sits relatively illiquid in your home equity.
When you list it all like that.
How does that complete financial picture of homeowners, all the costs, all the risks, the lack of flexibility, the tied up capital, really stack up against renting? Renting might mean lower ongoing costs, much more flexibility, and having that significant down payment capital free to invest elsewhere, potentially growing faster. Is renting always just throwing money away?
That's a much more complex comparison than the simple slogan suggests, isn't it? Once you account for all the factors the source brings up.
It really is. It's a calculation that's unique for everyone, of course. But the source material definitely nudges you to look beyond just the build equity argument and consider the entire financial and lifestyle equation much more deeply. That's definitely something to mull over as you contemplate tackling the first home headache.
Mhm.